Alright, so the very first step of making this shaker cabinet is to go through and make the legs. Now the reason we're starting with the legs is because they provide us a good base to work from. They're also relatively easy to store. And so it's going to allow us to knock these up and then just store them aside whilst we work on the rest of the body. Now, very first thing when making the legs is you need to go through and make a jig. Traditionally, they would have gone through and used a hand plane, but we do not require that. We can use technology such as a table saw, and for that we're going to make jigs, and this is what you guys are going to make, and then I'll run it through the table saw. Very first thing when making a jig is to really outline which side is going to be cut. So for me, I know my left hand side needs to be cut. So it's this rail along here that is where the saw blade is going to pass along. Taking that into account, we first need to set up a blocker. It's going to run along the edge here, and just on the inside here, just be a little bit further in. And it's going to hold our piece in line. So for this, I've already drilled some pilot holes there using a 4.5mm drill bit. Come through, set this in, set that there. I want to make it sure it's leaning hard up against it. Now we're using manufactured board. I'm just using some particle board here, but we're using manufactured board because it comes with no defects. It's not going to warp, or it shouldn't warp if it's not wet. It shouldn't warp if it's not wet, and it's going to allow us to get a nice straight cut because both edges have been machine cut. And that's one instance where manufactured boards are great, is for templates. From there, we need to go through and we need to mark out a couple things. The very first thing we need to mark out is 152 millimeters. From here down to there, 152, and draw yourself a mark. Then from that 152, you need to mark 516 millimeters. So bring it down to the mark you just drew, 516. So you've got 152, 516. Now, after you've done that, we're going to get rid of the 600mm ruler, and we're just going to use the 300mm ruler. And you're going to come in, you're going to mark 16 millimeters from the edge. Now once again, your jig's going to be more intentional than mine because I'm using this giant red texture. Then using a square, just join those up. Once again, I'm not actually going to use this as a jig, I'm just showing you the process. From there, you're going to come through and you're going to get your piece of timber, which is this one here. It's pretty simple. We're going to get that piece of timber and we're going to align it. So for me, I'm lining up that 152 there, and then I'm going to line up my 16mm mark to there. And get that lined up perfectly for where you want it. From there, you will get another piece of straight material, and make sure you're using the straight cut side. Now this is also again manufactured board, just a different type. You're going to come across here, you're going to line that up to where it needs to be, making sure to keep everything tight. That's where it needs to be. Coming down to the end, checking that one. You can probably come across a bit there. You don't want to taper too much off, but you do want to get that 16mm. So you're constantly just adjusting that to make sure it's sitting where you want it. From there, you get this holding it tight. You can get a pier to help you out with this. Put it in and then slowly screw this in, making sure not to de-thread it. So you're running that down there. Running that down there. From there, we have one more task. And what I want you guys to figure out, and this is where I want you guys to really use your brain, is how are you going to hold this piece in place so it's not going to fall off? What's something you can do to create a system to lock it in? Have a think about it and get back to me with the answers. Good luck.